Hi, this is Shayna with Against the Grain Homestead. Today I'm going to show you when to harvest elderberries and how we do it. So here's our elderberry plants. They're all the way down there and then it goes back. We've already harvested several times off of them, but I want to go ahead and show you what they look like when they are ready to harvest. So first of all, after each flower has been pollinated, the berries will start growing. So you can see these little green berries developing. These are not anywhere close to being ready yet. Okay, and then once they start ripening, they'll turn. Let me see if you can see this. I'm not so sure how it's showing up on the camera. This is everything kind of looks black on the camera right now. But so I don't know if you can see that color right there on top of my thumb. So it'll, after green, it kind of gets pink, and then a little bit darker pink, and then even darker. Okay. Here's another batch. So these are not ready to harvest. You can see there are some that are kind of dark, but they're not ready yet. Okay, over here, these are closer to being ready. Now let's find some that are ready. Let me look here. Okay. This one has several that's ready. These are pretty dark, but I like to get them a little bit darker, but just watch. And elderberries, they will stain your hands, they'll stain your clothes, your carpet, your cat. Right, Max? Okay, so right in here, it's kind of hard to do this one-handed. All right, so right in here, you see this cluster. These are pretty black. They're dark purple to black. That's when you want to harvest them. So what makes me decide on when to harvest one of these heads is when the majority of the berries are harvestable. You know, when they're black or really dark purple, that's when I will go ahead and harvest. So like this one here, okay, it has some black ones towards the bottom, but up at the top it still has a few green ones and some that are not purple or black yet. So I'll let this go a couple more days. You can see up here, this one, it's almost too tall for me to reach. This one, it has some here in the center above that leaf that's not quite ready yet, but it looks like most of them are ready. So I'll go ahead and I'll harvest this one as well. And these here, the majority of what's left, they're not ready yet. The birds have actually been getting these. Okay, so on this head right here, all right, some of these are not ready, but because the birds are getting them, I'm going to harvest, instead of harvesting this entire head, I'm going to harvest this little bunch right here. So I will clip it right here where my two fingers are. I will clip it there and I'll let these other branches continue to ripen for another day, maybe two. I still have a lot to harvest, but I wanted to take a moment to show you that when I harvest them, I just take these pruning shears. Max, stop. And I just clip off the head diagonal. So it's very simple. And I try to leave enough of the head, or I try to leave enough of the stem here to where I can, if I want to hang it to dry or just lay it out to dry like this, it just dries nicely. Okay, so we are actually in the middle here of the two rows. So all of this over here and all down, straight down through there, we put in, I think, about 3 years ago. And I prune them back every year to about 5 feet tall, and they grow quite tall and quite fast. We actually got rid of 40-something shoots or starts this year, and I had it down to where there's 3 different plants in here, and I had it down to where each plant just had maybe 6 or 8 of its own canes. And then last year, just about 12 months ago, I took one start of each of the 3 plants and moved it over here. So this was one, and then there was one, and then down there was another one. So I made a second row. But this row, even though when they flowered I tried to go ahead and harvest all the flowers, they still produced and almost got as big as the parent plant over here. So we have been harvesting boxes about every couple days. We come out here and we fill a box up, and then in the evening as we watch a movie we work on destemming these because it takes a long time to destem these. Anyway, and I do have several more that are ready to harvest, but my box is full, so I will come back out here tomorrow and harvest some more. After I harvest these, before I bring them in the house, I look through them on the underside like this for any little bugs, especially shield bugs. They like to hide in here. Anyway, I just shake them out and tap them off. But then, like I said, I look on the underside for any little bugs, and then after I do that, I flip them over and I do the same thing. Okay, so whenever we bring them in, we just have a big bowl in our lap, and I hold it in my 2 fingers like this, or hand, and then I just take my thumb and just rub them, and they just rub off pretty easy. You just want to be careful that you don't squish them because, you know, your hands will be stained. Sometimes my whole right hand is just stained purple, but anyway, they come off pretty easy when they're fresh and when they're ripe like this. So we just rub them off. But you don't want to get any green ones, but you will end up getting some green ones in the bowl. Just pick them out later. And you just want to get the ones that are just as ripe as possible. You can let this whole thing dry, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but I have found that it is easier to get them off and you get less of the branches, little twigs, if you do it when they're fresh, because when they're dry, those little twigs are very brittle, and so you end up with more twigs in your finished bowl than you would if you're doing them while they're fresh. Okay, so I got all the elderberries destemmed here. So now we're going to rinse them in cold water, and I rinse them a few times, and each time I fill it up with water, I make sure the water covers the elderberries by a few inches, and then I let it sit and settle out, and then any green berries or little stems or any berries that's not 100% ripe, they'll kind of float to the surface, and then I just pour off that. So I just rinse them, and I take my hand and I agitate them pretty good to help loosen up any, debris or anything there may be, dust or insects or whatever. But I don't squeeze them. I just take my fingers like this and just go like that. So you can see some of that stuff already coming to the surface. It also gets around the sides of the bowl as well. Once this settles down, then I will strain. I'll do a surface strain. Okay, so I'm just going to pour it off slowly. And you probably can't see it, but I can. This has all just been what's floated to the surface. Okay. All of these here, you see through that light? It's a really pretty purple color. We're going to strain this. And these are the ones that are, there's some good ones in here. You're going to lose a few good ones. And if you want to take the time, you can pick out some of these, the good ones. But you can see these lighter colored ones, and there's some green ones in here, and then any little twigs, debris, they all kind of float to the surface. So it's just a quicker way of making sure that what you get is the most ripe. All right. So these have went through 3 rinsings now. And these are ready for me to put in a freezer bag, and I'm just going to freeze them for right now. But we got quite a bit out of this picking. And over here, out of all that we picked, this is what we're going to throw away. And isn't that elderberry water a beautiful color? So make sure that you label them. Now, I know that these are elderberries. It's very obvious, so I didn't put elderberries. I just wrote the month and the year. But I've always just dried my elderberries in the past, but this season I decided to take to freezing them until the elderberry harvest is done, and then I may make some elderberry jam, and I can dry them out later if I decide to, but I just wanted to, this is a quicker way to get them out of my way. These are some elderberries that I've left on the stem and I just turned upside down so they could dry. I have a few shelves of them drying. These are just on this air drying rack that my husband made for me a few years ago. So whenever they are completely dry, they will look like this. They will be easily broken. And the little elderberries, sorry the lighting's not very good down here, but the elderberries, they are dry and they're like little dried raisins. Okay, so whenever you go to dry them in air like this, so we're downstairs in a dark corner, there's no direct sunlight on these. When we go to use this rack right here, we keep the ceiling fans on for air circulation. We also have a dehumidifier close by that removes the moisture out of the air. So those two things really help these things, anything we put up here, to dry pretty easily and quickly. So, so whenever you go to dry elderberries, you can either just take them, cut them off the plant like this and just lay them down, and shortly they'll be dry. Or if you wanted, you could, while they're still fresh, you could remove all the little berries and then just lay the berries loose out here. I will just lay them like this when I have so many. This is a quick way for me, but it's not my favorite way because once everything's dried very well and then you go to pick the berries off, the little stems, they are so brittle that you get a lot of little stems in your elderberries, because as you go to twist these little berries off, to pull them off, you get the little stems and stuff. But it can be done, and it's pretty easy. See how that just breaks off real easy? So these are dry. So my kids and I are going to have to go ahead and go through all these and put them in a jar.